And that symbol has to do with wealth. Ivory Coast, right? You have the Gold Coast, you have the Ivory Coast. And you also, so the Igbo, this is Nigeria though, Igbo, those kind of people, so that sense of that. But then the elephant and the human combined brings you out with this. And we certainly know the human, and we know of the bird head on the human body is Eru in ancient Egypt. We know Khnum, the ram head on the human body, we just spoke of. Anubis, the dog face on the human body. All of these were prototypes and images that was deep in our culture and in our subconscious. Riding animals, equestrian. In these cases, you'll find some interesting equestrians from different parts of the world. You find this one is from Mali, and so that the face and it's kind of like almost like a mixture between a camel. It's not really like a horse. It's almost like a camel, but no hump on the back. The people become like a hump, so that this is one of those amorphous. Again, it's not that the people. I mean, but you live with camels and not be able to draw them if you wanted to. And they did. But they were making very often you'll see the horse, the equestrian. In this case, it's a large horse, a big body. The face is small, the body is big, the legs are extra long. I mean, don't they? And certainly the horsemen know all about horses. The great horsemen that traveled to America. That's why we were called cowboys. Cowboys was because of black Africanized Americans. Called us cowboys because we were the experts. And when whites saw these black experts with the horse, they said, oh, we would like to join too. So cowboy, but boy was because you were a slave. Slave, boy, come here. Boy, come here. And so cowboy was that term indeed. And same thing with the Kentucky Derby. Began with black people.
Yes, it did.
Began with black people. And the whites got a little jealous because of all of that skill. So don't tell me they didn't know how to draw horses. They were making a statement. The Benin will often make the horse so teeny and the man huge, and it's not a donkey. But what they were saying in those statements was that the head is the seat of the soul, make the head big. Ori, the big head, the head container of the forces of the universe is there, and so must thus dominate over the horse. Or in some cases, so we find many statements I mentioned that think of these as language combinations that you decode, and we have the power to decode the mysteries of life. It was given to us. And then we have Senufo fire spit. I'll never forget when I saw a real Senufo fire spitter. Up country in Ivory Coast. We were up there, and this man started to eat fire, and then after a while he stopped, this fire eater, and he rolled up his tongue and went, and a little beam, a laser beam of fire came out of this man's mouth, about a yard and a half. I said, good God Almighty, look here. The fire spitter is a real entity, not just written in books. And so that's what these objects used to do. The description by Europeans in the 19th century said that they used to put hot coals. Some of these are huge, so big that a man can get inside, and he blows through a reed and the fire will come out. But in other cases, we know that they can spit fire. So many of these are a combination of the crocodile mouth for water, sometimes a bird on top. This one does have a bird on top, and back of a chameleon. Chameleon is the ability to change. The chameleon changes and disguises, when to have a disguise and when not to. But the literature also talks about the curl of the tail as representing things about creativity. And you'll find it, Dr. Fukiao, a specialist on the Congo, who is Congo himself, was telling me about the coiled rope. He said each individual is born with a coiled rope. And onto that coil is information. You continue to put information on that, and then it coils some more. More information, it coils, so it continues to coil. And then when you die, the coil unwinds, and your life history is there. Other societies related to the umbilical cord. So to coil up and uncoil is one of the reasons they use the chameleon. Other reasons have to do with care, because they say some of those creatures walk and they stop. Walk and stop and look and rotate those eyes. And so that's the concept of caution. And so that's there. The horns, of course, is for land. So you have a bird for air, horns for land, fire spitter, that's what it is, and the water here. So air, fire, water, and earth. And with those elements, they begin to philosophize and do many things. And the way that our language, or I'm not so much English, but the French and Spanish, la and lu, you know, for masculine and feminine. They describe everything in terms of masculine and feminine. But with some of these groups, it's air, fire, water, and earth. They describe that within all human beings and within these kinds of creatures, right? So, of course, we have air, we breathe. We have fire. They will say that the fire in us is that energy or combustion that takes place. And we certainly have water, you know, 90-some% of human beings is water. And then earth, with the marrow of the bones, they consider the earth an element. And then you go from the plant kingdom, and it's the same thing. So they say that we can infuse ourselves into the plant world if we want, because the plant world is infused into us. Don't you take minerals if you don't feel good? You take vitamins and did you have your iron? Do you have enough iron, phosphorus, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? So that is what they mean when they say they are a plant, or the plant is in us. So that these are jargons that need to be reordered within the realm of signs and symbols, but also another kind of science which we have indeed absorbed. And so what do these do in rituals? In rituals, these come out to exorcise the evil, evil spirits, evil beings, evil things within a society. When we live, we very often doing the wrong things or pressing ourselves too much or becoming abused, we tear the soul. And if you tear your soul, then other creatures or things can get inside of you. The shaman that I was talking about earlier today was saying that he went into, that people would come to him with problems and he would kind of like go into trance over them, etc. And so for this woman, he said, yes, you're sick, but he said, I can see what the problem is. You have a spider on your uterus. And I'll get in there and I will unlift the spider, I'll rip it out, I'll pull it off of you. And so apparently he said he did this, and the woman felt better, and she said, yes, 2 days ago, doctor had said that she had cancer of the uterus, and it had come back from an abusive situation in her life, in the early part of her life, until she got to that point when it was there. And so once the spirit of the disease was gone, then she was healed. Another case where the soul was ripped and flies got in there. So the spiritualist had to go in and with a fly vacuum. I'm not about the father from South Carolina now. I used to hear the dumbest stories from Beaufort and those kind of places. Now, we weren't from Beaufort, but I heard some people say something about, well, yeah, a frog is in her. A frog? I know a frog is, I said, you shaking your head, you must know something. I don't know a frog being a human being. But see, they were talking African spiritual talk, And indeed, if you notice in your dreams, sometimes there are things that may creep there that you think don't belong in yourself as a garden, and yourself as a beautiful person, etc. And so that you have to do what? You have to grab the bull by the horn. You can't just say some pretty little word. You grab the bull by the horns and say, no, God created me whole, and I will exercise you out of my being. So you have to talk to the spider yourself. You have to talk to the disease. So that African art, when it's ugly, what it's doing is presenting an ugly face to ugly situations. And some situations are so terrifying until it needs a leopard, which is the worst thing possible. Leopard or Black Panther. I mean, a Black Panther will come in there with some black power and to get the job done. Okay, so now here we have, this is Don Liberia. And it has a mouth. Very often they had a bird beak from a bird beak clan, a totem form. This one has an elephant-like mouth. But notice the eyes. It has two sets of eyes. One set down in here, which are slit eyes, and then tubular eyes, 4 eyes. It has 4 eyes. The tubular eyes, they say, is for like dancing and seeing. They become like telescopes, you know, you can do and see beyond your own self. And the slit eyes are feminine eyes. They say feminine eyes should be slit, a little downcast, perhaps even like the Mende mask there. A little downcast slit, meaning because that's the way women should be. Women should have eyes like, and an attitude like, I mean, you can't have big old eyes like a woman with, they say, you're into everybody's business. When you see a Mende man with round eyes, it's teaching girls how not to be. Gossip, big round mouth, into everything. I mean, you know too much. Your mouth is always on. Shut up. And be ladylike. And peer out at the world with some composure. And so that's the basic thought here. Now, this mouth may be making a different kind of statement than what I meant before, because it's belonging to a trunk and belonging to the elephant form. So that once again, these are concepts and ideas. When this becomes, eyes like that become part of the big grotesque weed mask, you know, then those are judge masks. They function in a court with court cases, with all kinds of historical data and information. And what it's saying is that these super beings that are judges, you beyond male and female like God. God is a spirit. God is not male or female. God is a spirit. So you worship God in spirit. So if you're a man or woman or whatever you are, neutral or whatever, you worship in the spirit. And so that to be beyond gender is to be like this. That you have the vision and the insights of females and also males. That's the message here. That you have 4 eyes. And that's why on the plantation in the Americas during the slaving era, they were always looking for what? The 4-eyed nigger. Because that was the person that could perceive for themselves and the community at large. And then they would go after. That would be the person that would be trying to kill. But some of them, they wouldn't because they couldn't kill them. And they would have the free reign. There were a few of those kind of heavy, powerful people. Nobody would touch them because they had the ability to pick up the power from certain kinds of creatures that knew how to become invisible in the animal world. There's certain creatures that say, you know, they were running after them and they seemed to disappear. They knew how to burrow into the ground just that fast or to do things. And so this idea of becoming invisible. And so that they say some of these Africans in the New World knew how the power of becoming invisible. And especially if you have a leopard claw, leopard tooth. Can you imagine if you had something like that? Because there's no leopards in the USA, right? And so if you had one that you managed to get out and carry with you, then you would maintain your power of how to become invisible and to move back. Okay, let's take a look at some. This is 14th to 18th century, old 14th, 18th century style, and here you have the leopard. Leopard associated with royalty, the royal families, right? So here's the leopard is there. And here you have, I think, another leopard, leopard spots. Who can change the spots of a leopard, says the Bible? No. And so that those spots, sometimes you'll see, if you look carefully at the leopard spots, you'll see a dark circle, and then you'll see a light circle, and then you see a dark around it again. And so this dark and light, black and white, and it was the ability to shift between the black and white realms, you know? And it was also, they said, some people said night and day. The ability to deal with night and day, and so that those were the kinds of things that was important. The penguin, I didn't see the penguin right off, but that one was another one. It has scales, and if you pull the little scales off, they make a perfect triangle. And the triangle, the top part represents the sun, and the bottom the moons. Has two moons. Or else it represents like a man and his two wives. But the triangle represented, you know, a certain amount of force. So that once again, to become a creature, an animal, they may be talking about to become like night and day. To have power over night and day. I have political savvy. I can know who was the real person that should have been in for president and not, or whether anybody should have been or not. I can see through the plot and plans of who owns what, etc., etc., etc. So those are your leopard people and your leopard power forces. Now we want to make sure we don't forget these here. Yeah. Oh no, this one here. Here's a leopard from the Merton Simpson collection. And you'll see these in the textbook, 12th to 14th century, from Benin. I'll show you some aquamanills similar to those. And I mentioned about the birds. And I'll talk downstairs about Nkisi kondis, which are sculptures that have nails in them and little packets of items, little balls of things. And so with that, I think, Herman, if I didn't talk too much up here, you can see I get wrapped up in the subject and in the topic. And, but I think at this point, you know, you can do what you wish.
What I like to do.
But what really gives it away, because you really look and you can see the white and the circles. This is a perfect example of what I was talking about, the black and white. Black and white in one creature here. And so I mean, a woman seated on a leopard, I mean, that's real power. And some places, you know, we were saying that, well, women didn't have much power. But women were they're the earth people. They're the earth people. Mother Earth is what we constantly say. And certainly these are beasts that come from the field, from the ground. So this is almost saying like the leopard and the lion and the lion and the sheep will lie down together. You will have two opposite, one a mild creature, one a very powerful creature, lying down together. And so to put a female, a tender little mild female on top of a very ferocious beast is that theme again of taming the wilds. And so what could tame the wilds? You know, sometimes you'll find a man who was a wild man, as in the story of Beauty and the Beast, as the female that can come along and with the right smile can take away a nation. You know, with the right smile can take away a nation and have the nation in the palm of her hand. so to speak. And so that's what you're looking at, why this is so wonderful, because it's a statement of opposites. And they mean for her to be very regal and graceful so that you won't forget. Just check out her neck. A neck that's extended that far up, you know, does mean majesty. And then what is she holding in her hand to give you the wisdom? But she's holding Sankofa, the bird, Sankofa bird. And it's turn back and fetch it. You know, I think most of you probably know about Sankofa from the movie Sankofa. And what did they do? In the movie, they had the Sankofa technique. You come in, you start forward a little bit, and then there was regression in the movie. So flashbacks in movies. That's why the Ghanaians are great in psychology, because they have this flashback Sankofa technique, not only in the art, here, the traditional art, but they have moved it into these same concepts and ideas into the modern filmmaking. So that if you look at a movie like Usman Sambine's Yenin, you have what? Resurrection. When the father was wayward and went into the wiles of witchcraft and sorcery, he was useless. But the son came along to give birth to another son. And when that happened, you saw resurrection, a tall beam rising up to relate to what? The outer space from whence many of them said they came and were born and came to earth from the way up. The crocodile on top of a roof means that too, descended from on high. And so at that point, he becomes not just down in the water and the mud, moving from one transition to another, from the earth to the water. And some say, well, maybe crocodile is a bird. He actually lays eggs. And so they argue all the time. No, it's got legs. It must be land, land animal. It runs on the land. Oh, no. It's in the water. It swims down in the deep. So that you can see in African art the crocodile coming from the sky down the roof of the buildings amongst the people in Benin, 14th to 18th century. And so that's what we mean about no boundaries. As the Punu, no boundaries, a human female fish legs here, right? So it's Sankofa, turn back and fetch it. Did you lose your soul someplace down the line? Go back and get pieces and piece yourself back together. Or let your God piece yourself back together. You are Osiris, cut into pieces, thrown to the world. Bring yourself back. And so these are eternal concepts and ideas of metamorphosis. So they don't belong to one race necessarily because they are so profound. And so that they are put into the museums, into the galleries, and people will forever be interested in them because of the humanness and non-humanness and those themes that they deal with. If you have trouble, turn back and fetch it. Regression, that's Freud and Jung. Get on the, how's your mother? Your relationship with your mother is determining by what you're doing with your wife or your husband. So regression, what we call psychological regression, they knew about these things. And these were manifested in these artworks. So this is indeed a beautiful work of art because Africans love, just keep in mind, they love to bring extremes together. Two extremes and kind of like bring them together. Now,
thank you, Don. When we were doing the Majesty of African Motherhood exhibit at the main branch library, which was our second location, Dr. Jeffries was here and her husband for a conference, and they came over from the conference and with a group of others and saw the exhibition, and she began to tell us about a book that she had been writing for some years about African maternity sculptures. That book is now done and edited. Orator and vocalist. We have often had him present at our openings, and we once He is from the Philadelphia area, and we're once again very pleased to have him this evening working with us and providing some spirit for the room. One of the things, just also to mention, as our capacity, we are unfunded, so we do this, out of love and spirit. But as our capacity grows, there are other things that you will see us do, and those will be, more programs that will have music. There will be costumes with the work, because when you see the work, as powerful as some of this work is, you have to remember that it is now still, but when you see this work, it would be emotion, the music would be at often at a fever pace, the chants of the people. So bring that into the experience as you view the